Have you ever wondered how World War I actually started? Well, it's one of history's biggest, most tragic ironies. It all comes down to a web of alliances, these promises that were supposed to keep the peace in Europe, but instead, they became the very thing that triggered a global catastrophe.
You know, this quote just hits the nail on the head. The leaders at the time genuinely believed these pacts were the ultimate deterrent. But as we're about to see, they didn't stop a war. They just guaranteed it would be enormous. So how on earth did a plan for peace turn into a blueprint for total disaster?
All right, so let's start with the big idea here, the promise of security. I mean, on paper, it makes perfect sense, right? Nations figured that if they all banded together, they could create a world that was just too dangerous for any one country to risk an attack. The core concept was super simple. An attack on one is an attack on all. The thinking was, who's going to be crazy enough to attack one country when they know they'll have to fight all of its powerful friends too? It was meant to be the ultimate don't even think about it. Okay, but, and this is a huge but, this is where the theory just completely crashed into reality. Instead of making everyone feel safe, the alliance system basically created continent-wide paranoia. Every country was constantly looking over its shoulder, watching its rivals make new deals. And this didn't lead to more talking. It led to military leaders drawing up plans for a war they now saw as inevitable.
So with all this fear swirling around, what happens? Well, Europe basically splits right down the middle into two heavily armed camps. It became this incredibly tense standoff between two rival teams, and pretty much every nation had to pick a side.
So on one side, you've got the Triple Alliance, who we often call the Central Powers, and squaring off against them was the Triple Entente, who would become the core of the Allied powers. Let's dig into what was really bringing each of these groups together.
So, what was holding the Triple Alliance together? Well, it really boiled down to a shared sense of insecurity. Germany was this new, rising power, and it was terrified of being boxed in by its old enemy, France, on one side, and the massive Russian Empire on the other. At the same time, you have the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which was this fragile, multi-ethnic state that desperately needed Germany's muscle to keep a lid on all the nationalist movements popping up in the Balkans. And the other team, the Triple Entente, they were held together by some equally powerful forces. For France, it was all about getting revenge on Germany for a humiliating defeat a few decades earlier. For Great Britain, which had the biggest navy in the world, Germany's new modern fleet looked like a direct threat to its global empire. And then there's Russia, which saw itself as the great protector of all Slavic peoples. It wanted to challenge Austria-Hungary's power in the Balkans.
So you've got this powder keg of a continent, just packed with suspicion, secret military plans, and competing ambitions. All it needed was one tiny spark to set the whole thing off, and that spark came from a city most people at the time had probably never even heard of: Sarajevo.
On June 28, 1914, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, is assassinated by a Serbian nationalist. Now, this was a huge deal, a shocking act of political violence for sure, but at its heart, it was a regional problem between Austria-Hungary and Serbia. Or, at least, it should have been. But no, this is the moment where that fatal chain of alliances kicks in. The very system that was designed to create security was about to become an unstoppable machine, dragging everyone into war, whether they wanted it or not. And watch how fast this happens. It's just breathtaking. Austria-Hungary, feeling confident with Germany's support, declares war on Serbia. Then Russia, playing the part of Serbia's big brother, starts mobilizing its massive army. Germany sees that as a direct threat, so boom, it declares war on both Russia and Russia's ally France. Then to get the jump on France, Germany invades neutral Belgium. And that one act, violating a neutral country, is the final straw that pulls the British Empire into the war. The dominoes just fell one after another in a matter of weeks.
And the end result of this chain reaction, wow, it was a catastrophe on a scale that nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted. The consequence was just so much bigger than the cause. Just think about that for a second. A political murder, carried out by a handful of assassins in the Balkans. It was a local crisis. But because of that tangled web of promises and treaties, this one single event managed to pull empires from all over the globe into one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. Millions would die, all because of this chain reaction. So here's the bottom line. The alliance system was a catastrophic failure. Instead of containing the problem, it acted like a massive amplifier, turning a regional squabble into a global inferno practically overnight. It was the ultimate
tragic, unintended consequence.
And all of this history leaves us with a really important question, one that's just as relevant today as it was 100 years ago. When nations promise to protect each other, are they actually building peace, or are they just setting a trap?